and gratitude from everyone here in the Coachella Valley and from other points on the globe that will be tuning in for this very special presentation from Javier Muñoz. Javier is an actor, an activist. His impressive body of work spans theater, film, television. Best known for starring as Alexander Hamilton in the cultural phenomenon musical Hamilton on Broadway for 2 years after Lin-Manuel Miranda departed the show, and he was his alternative prior to that. He got his break starring as Yusnavi in the Heights on Broadway, also created by Miranda. Javier will soon star in the dark comedy indie feature Monuments. His other credits are shown on the screen. As you can see, they are lengthy, and we could have gone 2 or 3 more slides, but we decided to stop at 1. So without further ado, Javier, we welcome you to Aging Positively Reunion Project.
Am I on?
You
There's so many
are.
pop-ups.
Yes, you are here, and thank you so much for joining us today in lovely Palm Springs and Coachella Valley.
I wish I was there. We've got the fall and winter chill coming in here, y'all. Okay, I want to apologize first and foremost. I usually do these kinds of things with a teleprompter app that's on my phone that decided tonight to not work. So I'm going old school and I'm using paper. So, all right, I'm gonna do this full screen because I'd love to see all of your incredible faces here. There we go. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna just jump in here. Long-term survivor, aging with HIV, HIV with aging. What does it actually mean? I have to tell you, I don't know. I don't know because it's never been done before. Because we are breaking new ground, investigating a new frontier, boldly going where no one has gone before. You knew I was going there. You knew I was going there. And we must be bold each and every day that we choose to get up, to wake up, and to keep living. We are the first to do this, to age with HIV. And before I get into anything else, isn't that a blessing? Isn't that a gift? We're here. As HIV/AIDS ravaged our country and our world, it did not enter my life personally and intimately until the 90s. I'd come to meet who would eventually become my first love, my great love, Michael. He was living with AIDS at the time that we'd met, and I was young, not fully knowledgeable yet, so I debated heavily about what to do, to follow my heart or to follow my fear. Well, I ultimately decided to follow my heart. We spent 5 years together, and he passed away in my arms at what was St. Vincent's Hospital here in New York City. Through him, I met an entire generation of men and women who helped completely shape my perspective, who taught me dignity, taught me pride, taught me how to dance, taught me how to dress, who taught me what it meant to have chosen family. One of these incredible humans was his very close best friend, Willie Ninja, mother of the House of Ninja. Willie, I'm going off script for a second. Willie ended up taking me under his wing after Michael passed, and we became dear friends. He became a mentor of sorts and a good friend of my parents, in fact. And when he passed, that's when I lost that entire generation of people. Those mentors, those protectors, those guides, some of my closest friends. Now, I tested positive in 2002. And I had not become positive as a result of my relationship with Michael. That happened later when I was living in San Francisco. And that's actually a story for a topic for an entirely other time. If today's topic were the consistent power and strength of stigma, I would bring that up, but it is not. So I continue. When I returned to New York from San Francisco, I immediately reconnected with Willie for guidance for my chosen family. But then losing Willie solidified for me a fear that I had had since losing Michael. And it was that I too would be looking at a life cut short. Despite my healthy lifestyle, despite my constant therapy, mental wellness, despite, you know, I'm a performer, I'm a dancer, I have to maintain a decent amount of health. And certainly before the quarantine and lockdown, and I put on my pandemic pounds, if you will, I was quite fit. But I did have this persistent fear that I too have to surrender to this sooner than I'd hoped. And then I turned 33, and that was the age that Michael passed. And I kept going, and I kept living. And then came In the Heights, and I kept going, and I kept working, and I was feeling great. And then Hamilton happened, and my career exploded. And then I got the opportunity to start working with the organizations that I loved the most, with GMHC, with BCEFA. And I'm now on both of their boards of directors. I get to serve my community in return. I started working with RED and traveling the world and the country and seeing their work on the ground firsthand. And I was okay. I was more than okay, in fact. Before all of that, I was finding myself in a position to give back the support, the guidance, the compassion, the love that had been given to me. And my fears had subsided, for the most part. And now I obviously do not know each and every one of your personal stories, but I would imagine that there are some of you who, like me, reacted well to medical breakthroughs and medicines. And when that kicked in, along with everything else in my lifestyle, I found myself healthier and stronger than my fears had ever allowed me to be or think that I was. And I was awakening to the fact that I was a benefactor of every single human heart and soul that had come before me, that had fought for these medications, that had fought for the research, for the protections, for the visibility, for our very lives. And I started seeing myself as the product of their sacrifices. I began to internalize the responsibility of carrying on their work, their fight, their love, their fire, in whatever way I could. And I also started to understand that this was starting to make me be able to define myself as a long-term survivor. So I had surpassed 33, I'd surpassed Michael's age. And I'm fast and furiously approaching my 50s. And here I am. And so I keep asking myself, what does this mean? And what can my life actually look like? What plans can I begin making? What can I allow myself to start looking forward to? And who am I becoming? And then COVID-19 hit. Living with HIV in the time of COVID-19. Not only vulnerable due to a compromised immune system, I'm also a cancer survivor, so that's sort of a doubly compromised immune system. I'm older, I fall into that bracket just like all of you. And I have to admit that I started to feel a fear that I hadn't felt in decades. And it was paralyzing. It was paralyzing when this all started. I felt myself triggered by the sheer amount of the language that was being used. Virus, antibodies, pandemic. I started feeling myself get triggered by the sheer amount of lives lost, both personally and globally. The disparities and inequities that impact racial and ethnic groups and economic groups, all of this resonating and echoing inside of me. And for quite some time at the beginning, all of this, it overwhelmed me. But then I just sat with that because we had nothing but time to sit with these things, right? And the longer I sat with this, I found myself able to maintain, when I silenced all of the fear and the anxiety, I found myself able to maintain my safety and my wellness through this time. So I sat with that. And that somehow, and I'm not going to get into the science of it or the you know, whatever of it, the energy of it, but it opened up a space in me. It opened up a space in me, and I caught my breath, and I realized I was in the position to be a great help and strength with my experience of living with HIV during this exact time. That I could help others from my years and years of living through the global pandemic of HIV/AIDS. So it hit me, that magic word, the word that encapsulates everything from living with HIV, being a long-term survivor, and living through COVID-19, resilience. This is a passage from one of my favorite books. It's called Warrior of the Light by Paulo Coelho. I probably butchered his last name. And here you go. The warrior of the light sometimes behaves like water, flowing around the obstacles that they encounter. Occasionally, resistance might mean destruction, and so they adapt to the circumstances. They accept without complaint that the stones in their path hinder their way through the mountains. Therein lies the strength of water. It cannot be touched by a hammer or ripped to shreds by a knife. The strongest sword in the world cannot scar its surface. The river adapts itself to whatever route proves possible. But the river never forgets its one objective, the sea. So fragile at its source, it gradually gathers the strength of the other rivers it encounters. And after a certain point, its power is absolute. True resilience. How many have we buried? How often in our lives have we felt isolated, lonely, unseen? How many abuses have we experienced, both, whether it's verbal, emotional, physical? All of these experiences, some of these experiences, as a result of our status and our age, or both. Yet, we're still here. Resilience. This is, I believe, as long-term survivors, our anthem, our theme, our strength, our power. It's what will lead us forward to continue discovering what life is for people aging with HIV. This will lead us towards continuously breaking new ground as we defy ignorance and uninformed perceptions. Not only do we cut away at the wall of stigma still surrounding HIV through our longevity, but we change hearts and minds about aging with each breath we take, with each step we take, with each day we thrive. Resilience is our living legacy. And it's not easy, nothing is. But if there's one thing, just by being here, that we've proven, is that we can thrive each and every single day for ourselves, for one another, and for all of those coming after us. Thank you for having me today. And I know we're gonna open up to a Q&A. I certainly would have loved to have maintained more eye contact through that. I'm so sorry that my app wasn't working.
No
I'm also
worries.
not technologically savvy, so there's that.
We understand. Jeff, I'm going to invite you to moderate some of the questions that may come in as well. And I know you might have the first question today, or at least a comment.
Yes. Well, thank you, and no worries about the technological issues. We had a few of our own today, so we all rely on everyone's forbearance and understanding as we muddle through this together in so many ways. But this was terrific, and thank you so much. We're deeply, deeply grateful that you were able to join us this year. I mean, that was a blessing of COVID, right? As you, Broadway is dark and you had no conflicts, so we were able to make it happen this year. This is really exciting. Do you want to tell us what, it was interesting when we first started talking to your agent about this. She said, well, Javier has a hard stop at 7 p.m. his time. So do you want to tell us what you're going to be doing right after this? And I'll post the link to that in the chat.
Surely. Yeah, this is actually why I'm kind of snazzed up a little bit. I'm doing a concert after directly after this, a virtual concert. I'll pull this computer back, stand up, and start singing my face off to raise money for a charity, children's charity that basically pairs children who are either homeless or are in dire situations, broken homes, abusive parents, runaways, etc., and it marries them to new families. And it's this fantastic, beautiful organization, and so raising a little money tonight for them.
Terrific. Thank you so much. So we'll open it up, and we've been doing this throughout the day where, we go to gallery and see people either raise their hands physically or use the little button if we're tech savvy enough to do that. So I'm going to see if anybody has any questions or things they'd like to ask you about. Yeah, Jonathan, go ahead. Jonathan, go ahead and unmute.
And didn't you also do a online concert benefit last night?
Yes.
With Seth?
With Seth Rudetsky?
Yeah.
No, that was
okay. You were on the Broadway channel.
Oh, was I? Oh, that's so funny. Okay.
Well, Jonathan, last night, yeah, Jonathan, last night there was actually, I sat out with my socially distanced friends on the patio. We got carry out, and this was all the Hamilton friends together on a Zoom fundraiser for the Biden Victory Fund.
Oh, yes. That
was last night. Now that must have been pre-recorded, I take it, correct?
No, we pre-recorded the music video, but
yes,
the Zoom itself was live. That was us.
That was so much fun.
Yeah. You probably recognize the set.
Yes, I did.
This is my Zoom corner.
All right. Other questions from our members? Nicholas Snow, let's unmute you.
Hi, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your service and for being here and for your story. I would love to, and as a person living with HIV, I admire your role modelship, if that's a word. One of the things I wanted to know, were you at the theater the night that Mike Pence was there?
Yes.
And would you describe that experience briefly because of the time limit, and speak to the power of Hamilton in terms of shifting the paradigm around issues of race and equality, especially in the wake of the atrocities that continue to be perpetrated against Black and brown people?
Absolutely. So yes, I was, by the time Mike Pence came, I was already full-time Hamilton. So I had been the alternate. I was only on Sundays. Lynn did 7 shows, I did 1. And then when he left the show, I went to full-time. And so I was already in full-time mode when he came. And we didn't have word that he was coming. We all showed up, and I got a phone call to show up 15 minutes early. And my stage manager met me in my dressing room to let me know that Mike Pence was coming to the show. And then she immediately followed with language she was worried I was gonna like storm out of the building, right? So she immediately was like assuming that was gonna happen. And I said, no, don't worry about that. I'm fine. Because my immediate reaction was, you're in my turf now, sir. This is my home. You have to sit there. You have to know that I'm openly gay and I'm openly HIV positive, and you have to sit and watch me. You paid my rent just now. Thank you very much. My home, right? So I was on fire for this. And not everybody was though. So the announcement was made just before half hour. And there were a lot of cast who just were so upset they didn't know ahead of time. They were upset that they didn't have a choice in the matter, right? They had to perform. And that's when, you know, that's when the unspoken things about playing principal roles on Broadway is you are in fact leadership in the building, right? The cast will look to you, and you get to help direct that energy. And so immediately jumping in and feeding them the fire that I had, and you know, we all just gathered in a circle right before the show, agreed what we were about to do, and we were going to do it with excellence, and we blew the roof off of that building. And prior to my showing up for that performance, the producers and stage management had met to craft a speech. And that would be the speech that we were going to give. They invited me and Brandon Victor Dixon, who plays Aaron Burr, who was playing Aaron Burr at the time. They invited us into this conversation. And I immediately said, this speech can't come from me. This speech has to come from the straightest of our cast. There's already beef between me and Mike Pence by me just being who I am. Let's not let this get, you know, let someone else out in the world spin this in some way. Let's make sure the message gets relayed with its intent. And Brandon gave the speech. Now the original bow and the way this should happen is the lights come down at the last moment. They come back up. We all bow together. Hamilton comes up, does his bow, and then the entire company comes up for a company bow. And we all bowed together. I went up for my bow, and Mike Pence was leaving. And Brandon clocked it and said, he's leaving. And so I heard him turn to our conductor, and I asked him to cut the music, and I just, Brandon, go, go, go. And then we call, you know, as Brandon's starting to give the speech and quiet the house down, we're gathering our offstage cast and crew, whoever wants to come on, to stand with us. And we delivered the speech. And I feel so many things about this. To place myself back at that time, it was a respectful speech. There was nothing disrespectful about it. And it was not just needed selfishly for us. We, the greater we, needed that moment to happen. And we knew that. And I'm grateful that we did this. And I would do it again in a heartbeat. The fallout from this, the day after and for the next year and a half to 2 years, the harassment began. So letters to the theater, death threats on my social media, and I didn't even give the speech. I was just the focus, right? So producers got security they upped security in the building. I had 3 verbal attacks at the stage door after shows, so I no longer did the stage door. Security got so tight that I had a security guard outside my dressing room door. So everywhere I went in the building, I had to be accompanied. My mail was checked before it was given to me to make sure that no hate mail or anything got to me. I had to leave Facebook because long form Facebook hate mail wasn't, you know, my cup of tea. I thought, I don't really want to, you know, enjoy this that much. So I deleted Facebook. And then, you know, the ways in which folks are so creative at getting at when they really want to get to you. I was doxxed. And if you don't know what that means that all of my personal information was made public. So my social, my phone number, my birthday, my home address, my emails, everything was made public and available online. So I had to scramble with my team to up my own personal security and get everything together. And at a certain point, I could not, I had to be accompanied I had to text security on my way to the theater when I was on the train so they could meet me at the train station and escort me into the building. And then I was escorted out into a car so that I could safely be driven home. So really the safest place that I had was home, because stuff would happen on the streets, stuff would happen on the trains. People just felt free to verbally come at me in reaction to this. And finally, I left the show, and there was one day where I had left my apartment to go drop off my laundry. And that's right around the corner. And I came back and there was an envelope with my name handwritten on it on the screen door of the house. And I was living in Queens at the time, which is a neighborhood that's mostly like, 2 family homes turned into multiple apartments. So I was on the top floor back apartment. And so it's really a house. And so on the screen door is this envelope, and my landlady would occasionally leave me letters, but she would usually leave them inside, not outside. But I thought maybe she just left it outside. So I grabbed it, I went upstairs, I opened it, and it's a death threat, and it's handwritten. It's come to my doorstep. So for the next 2 weeks, I have a public breakdown. I have to begin a unofficial police investigation to find out how local the threat is, if it is in fact in my neighborhood, if it's not, how close is it, etc. And that's the fallout from that one speech. I've since moved, and my personal information is very secure. I've learned a lot in this time. I'm not the only one this has happened to. And that's what's really bonkers to me, is that this is so very easy for folks who are quite savvy to do to anyone they choose. And what I think it really, now that I'm okay, I think the greater sort of symbol that it represents is it speaks to this administration as a whole. It speaks to the energy we're living in. It speaks to what we have to fight through every day as normal people when hate is permeating and pervasive and seeping into the cracks of everything that exists as a result of this leadership. And so this election came around, and I may be getting more to your question, Jonathan, that you asked previously. The reason Hamilton spoke up was multiple reasons, but one of them being we had to get out the vote and make sure that we were endorsing Biden. And I don't know Broadway history all that great. I'm no scholar. Don't put money on what I'm about to say, but I'm pretty sure that no other Broadway show has done this. Maybe they have, I don't know, but but openly endorsing a candidate, I don't think has ever happened. So it's a big deal that we the producers and the investors all agreed to do this. It's not something when producers are keen on, when it's going to affect ticket sales and all that kind of stuff, But ever since when 2016, when the Black Lives Matter movement began, we as a cast were desperate to get Hamilton as an entity to speak up for this. And we were fighting against that business model versus what we, the cast, want to do as human beings on this planet and add our service to, And it was unfortunate that nothing happened then. But now, this particular year, we're pretty strong as a cast when we gather together and put our forces together. And we did it again. And we went for our producers and our creatives again and said, this is the time that Hamilton needs to be present. look what we can do when we're together. You need to let us do this. And not in so many words, obviously, some more proper words in an email, but you know what I'm saying. And so essentially, it wasn't that difficult now to move their hearts. And so there's been some really wonderful things that Hamilton has been doing that haven't been so, haven't had such a spotlight like last night did, you know, but because we have the Chicago company, or had the Chicago company, because we have the LA company, because we have the tour, because we have the Broadway company, we've got our feet in a lot of places that we can affect a lot of change. And so the casts in each of those areas are organizing, and Hamilton's supporting it. And so there really is a lot of great stuff happening, and I'm relieved. I'm relieved to be able to say that I'm part of this show. I'm proud to be able to say I stand with this show. You know, it's not just my one voice or like 10 of our voices in the cast or whatever, or the cast on its own separate of the show. You know, we get to bring the weight of Hamilton into the work we want to do. And so I'm grateful that we get to do it, because we have to do it. There's no choice. That's it.
Indeed. What an incredible story. And thank you so much for sharing. I had no idea that you had to endure all of that. And Nicholas, a good question on your part.
Yes,
obviously, you've done some research and homework on this too. Jeff, do we have any other questions this afternoon?
Yes, Jennifer, go ahead.
yes.
Hi, Javier. How are you doing? Good
There
to
you
see
are.
you. So one of the things I admire you, in addition to your immense, musical talent and acting skills, is that you are willing to speak truth to power, and you put yourself out there, and you use your social media, and you use your platform. I love that Hamilton is the play is putting their voices behind what we need to put our voices behind, and we all need to speak up, and and as you just pointed out in your story, sometimes it's really scary, and we get in these situations that I knew some of what happened to you, and it's a scary thing to sometimes put ourselves out there, but it's so important that we keep doing that, and we be there for one another, and we're there for each other. And I guess my question is, what advice do you have? How do you keep going? Why is advocacy, we all get tired, we get worn down. How do you keep going? What self-care do you do? How do you, keep doing it every day? What advice do you have for other advocates? And, the HIV activist community is amazing, and resiliency is our superpower.
Yes.
What do you do?
Thank you for that. First of all, thank you for your words, and thank you for that question. And that there's like multiple layers to my answer, right? There's the very base layer of like comfort food, like all the pizza in New York City keeps me going, right? So there's like this real basic, but like, really like what gives me the energy to decide that like I'm not going to surrender to the fear. I'm not going to surrender to the intimidation, because you're right, it's out there, and that experience taught me so much about what's really at risk every day when anyone chooses to speak up. And I really had to, externally, I had to find my people, right? I had to find at least one or two people who spoke my language, who had a similar sort of perspective in terms of what they're willing to risk, right? And the risk doesn't have to be the same for everyone. I'm not placing judgment on that, but I needed to find others like me who had the same kind of fire and willingness to be like, okay, you're gonna dox me again? Cool, I'm ready this time, right? And I did. It took some time, but I did find, and we have our little, texting group, and that's a great source of comfort for me when something gets overwhelming, and I mean the tiniest moment of overwhelming. We all understand that we need to put it somewhere. And so that's the space we create, is you can put it here, and we're going to welcome it, and we're going to be here for each other, and know that that's what's needed. You need the support to be able to say, I'm really scared right now, but not show it wherever you are, but put it somewhere, right? So, thank God they're there. And on the other side of that is then finding people I trust who are not like, right? Finding the other energies out there, the people who are far doing much smaller work, doing the simpler gestures, and from that all the way to folks who are fundraising for organizations, and just sort of diversifying my resources and my pool of people, so I can just get their energies and their ideas and know that, like, yes, there are so many ways to resist and to fight and to be active, and it's and sort of being around their ways inspires me. It's like, oh, that's really powerful what you just did, and it's totally not what I would have thought of to do, and I want to support that now, right? So it's like, that keeps me going. And then the other things are just like real basic self-care that I'm sure you already know, which is like rest, hydration, meditation, journaling, really keeping in touch with the things. That book that I read from, that's a book, I've had it for years. I keep it available because when I'm feeling like I don't have the words, I don't have the energy, I don't have the breath, I pick it up, you turn to a random page, each page is a different passage. I just randomly find one and remind myself, like, yep, right, you're not alone, you have a team, other people are doing this, you need 5 minutes, take 5 minutes, now come back. It's sometimes I just need that external thing to remind me, like, we're all doing this. Any human being with a heart and a mind is doing this. So, draw on that. But I to what you said at the beginning of your statement, the reason I try to be as transparent as I am is because I don't think enough people talk about this stuff. And so it starts to look like anyone can do it. Anyone can do this or that. And it's like a breeze to stand up and protest or whatever, and it's not. And as much, it's sort of like that same effort to make mental health this easy conversation for everyone. The risks that are taken through activism because of one's activism should be easily discussed, so that we know that we can be there for each other, even strangers, because we understand, oh, we all know what the language is around this risk because we've seen other people sharing their story. So I think it's important to have that sort of transparency.
Excellent. Thank you. We have one more question. We have time for one more question, and we'll go to Andrew. No, we love it. We just want to be respectful of your time. We know you have a 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern time performance. And again, we have put that in the chat if anyone would like to support that this evening. So Andrew, let's go to your question, please.
Hi, Javier.
Hi.
I'm a big Hamilton fan, and so I've followed a lot of the news over time. And I did know about the Mike Pence incident. That was public news, and the horrible response from the Orange Monster and such. But to hear your story of the details of the fallout afterwards is quite extraordinary. And I admire your having pulled through that all. It also, like you said about the administration's response, it reminds me of what happened with Kathy Griffin, who had a lot of backlash and, horrible things happened to her. And I just wanted to say, I just so greatly admire your openness about your being positive and gay and all that you've gone through with your illnesses over the years. And I just admire your positivity and being out there as an activist. And I really thank you for all your work that you're doing ongoing. And it's so great to just be in your presence today. Oh, thank you very much.
Andrew, thank you so much. Those words are nourishment. Thank you. Thank you.
Very much. And Jeff, let's turn it over to you for a follow-up.
Yeah, so thank you for that amazing story about the backstory of Mike Pence. I had no idea it was that awful. And kudos to you for going through that and the resilience you showed. And it reminds me of what the early AIDS activists, it was a little before my time, but what they had to endure. And now it's just a long, hard slog. It's a little different than being in the trenches in the way that you are. But yeah, I heard you mention, was I correct in hearing that the producers did not want the Hamilton cast to publicly take a stand on Black Lives Matter? I mean, that's just, given what Hamilton is and what it means, Why would they not have done that?
It's not quite. Let me explain it sort of
Sure.
more fuller. When we as a cast came to them to ask with our ideas of what we wanted to do, we had campaigns that we wanted to run, but we wanted to put the Hamilton name on our efforts. The producers weren't in agreement, not everybody, and wanted us to find a way to still be active, but were tentative about us putting it under the umbrella of Hamilton. So if we decided to go out and say, we're all Broadway, artists, and everybody out there knows that we're in Hamilton, right? Because I'm standing there with David and, Renee, then that's okay. But the name of it, the name of the brand, if you will, right? They were trying to sort of gauge how to protect this in this environment. Our head producer persisted to work with us. And he opened up his offices, and we actually got to have meetings with members of Black Lives Matter to start talking about if our ideas were something they would embrace and we could work together, and etc. And so we ended up actually just giving over our ideas over to them to take and run with. And that's kind of the most that came out of those meetings, which is great. But I don't want it to come across that the producers didn't want us to. It's hard to explain the business of theater. I've been in it for, well, at least this aspect, and I've been surrounded by it for so damn long that I get it, but it's hard to express that it's like these aren't evil people, right? And they're not cold, and they don't want to stand by and not do anything. But the business of theater is a beast of a thing. And it's a force of its own. And I cannot make heads or tails of all of the results of those decisions that come from that energy. But what I can say is we've come so far in the last 5 years. There is not a producer on Broadway who does not have that interrogation light on them right now. The organization of us as a community, knowing what we were up against, has only gotten stronger. And when you've got all the Tony winners who are still alive, who carried every show that they're casting, saying, you want me, this is how this works, right? And we're all standing in solidarity about diversity, about the equality. When we're finally able to do that together, and it's taken 5 years to organize in this way, but we've gotten here, and we have them. I don't want to make it sound confrontational, but we have them where we want them. Do you know what I mean? And we have them where we need them to be finally. And so I really am excited for when this pandemic is over and theater comes back and we can gather in spaces again. And Lord knows I cannot wait to be with audiences again. Like when that happens, Broadway is not going to be the same. It can't be the same. There's no going back. We can't arrive where we've arrived and go backwards. That's not going to happen. And so it's exciting to me. These exchanges, these conversations, this awareness. I will share something that no one knows. We, as a cast, had a Zoom with our creatives and our producers where we just got to listen to them say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry we didn't listen to you. I'm sorry we haven't seen you. I'm sorry, and I'm taking responsibility. We sat for a Zoom with them through this. That's where we are. And I think that's extraordinary. And that's hope. And that to me says we can't go back.
Thank you. That is so powerful. And yeah, kudos.
What a beautiful way.
Lots of applause.
What a beautiful way to end.
I do want to say, add one thing that was put in the chat, which is, I think, brilliant. Jonathan suggested that for the Biden inauguration, that the Hamilton cast all perform, virtually if need be. It's kind of a, a finger.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you so much, Javier. And we so appreciate you being with us today.
Thank you. And this honestly, I just want to say, this is an honor to stand amongst you. Stand amongst you, right? Virtually.
Yeah.
I really am overwhelmed with a joy, right? That we're here and I get to see your faces and that this wasn't canceled and I get to have this moment with you all. Because we are trailblazing. And I'm honored by your asking me to join you today. So thank you.
Thank you.
Now I'm gonna go warm up and get my voice
You may
ready
go do that.
for a concert of people.
Well, it's
Take
been
care,
a pleasure
everybody,
having you
please.
with us today. Javier, thank you so much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. And that is a wrap for our conference today, Aging Positively Reunion Project Virtually 2020. And because of it being virtual, we were so honored to have Javier with us today and to just make this such a special day for everyone who's participating. For many of you, you'll carry on the messages and the things you learned today, and you'll be able to impart this upon others that you know and love and care for. And so thanks everyone for coming out today for this wonderful program. And a reminder that we are going to ask you for a survey at the end so you can give us some feedback. How can we ever top this? I don't know, but we will certainly try for next year, 2021. And we are giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards for people who are helping us out with that survey. So I think that is about it. Jeff, anything else before we end today? Otherwise, thanks everyone who participated, our entire crew here, Eisenhower Medical, for hosting us today and for everything that occurred in this wonderful day. Have a great day, everyone, and be safe.
Thank you all for joining us. You made it happen. I'm muted.